Recorded. Hello and welcome to the Holistic Recruiter. I am very happy to have you on, Andrea. It's been a long time coming, but we did it. We
Finally,
did it. When did we
yes.
start speaking? Back in
Oh,
like October or something.
it must, yeah, it definitely is last year, and it just got, we do it. Not now, next week, the week after next week, the month after the week after the next week.
I
And
think I met you just as you were getting famous. You went like this. Like I was like seeing you, and then suddenly you were just everywhere. I was like,
I was
this is
everywhere.
fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm grateful to whomever helped me to get like everywhere. I don't know how that happened, but I'll take it.
It's so good. So the reason how we found each other was because you were doing a lot of really good content about your vision of the talent space and specifically the principal recruiter, right? And I
Mm.
would love if you could just give us an overview of what is a principal recruiter in your mind.
Yeah, more than happy to do so. Should I do it in the more generalistic term or more in the, you know what, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is what I think a principal looks like?
Go for it. Go for it. Whichever you feel more comfortable with, whatever you think will resonate.
Um, I will use myself as an example because I think some of the struggles I've been through will probably resonate with some of your audience as well. What's this thing of a principal recruiter? You know what? First and foremost, it's nearly a one-to-one translation from principal engineering, because I didn't invent this job. It was invented by someone really quite smart somewhere in this world. But ever since I discovered the existence of a principal recruiter role globally, and then I studied about the principal engineer role in my two organizations ago at Zalando, I was like, that sounds like me. So what does this mean? It means that you are a senior individual contributor in talent acquisition, handling a domain. By domain, I mean it can be technology, it can be accounting, it can be finance, it can be all the commercial functions, it can be whatever. Handling a domain or multiple domains. So your span horizontally in an organization is quite broad.
Okay.
You don't, if you're a senior recruiter hiring for senior backend engineers repeatedly, and you're very good at doing that, and you add in a product manager here and there, that doesn't make a difference, regardless of how good you are at that. So first is this, right? Your span of responsibility in terms of hiring is broad, right? Then you are still hiring. This is important to mention, and you are successful in your hiring actions. So you are a really high delivery asset in your team. Then another aspect of a principal is you do that at the same time when you manage projects. You lead impactful projects for your team, your immediate talent acquisition team or extended talent acquisition team, and you lead projects for your business domain, whichever that might be. So you lead for two separate areas. Also, if you look overarchingly, you have a bird's eye view of how things run in talent acquisition, but not only for talent acquisition, but for the business. What I mean by that, you understand the recruitment processes necessary for the business domain that you're covering, and you understand the potential inefficiencies, and you aim to improve on those things. This will help both the talent acquisition domain and your business domain. So this is process improvement. So to cut it off, we have process improvement in your realm of responsibility, optimization, improvement, and you need to deliver on this. Project management, and the projects must be impactful beyond your immediate scope. So a 2-people project that impacts a 3-people team is not the kind of projects we are looking at. We are looking at large impact. The whole TA team, or half of your TA team, or your tech TA team, however you're structured,
Yeah.
and business domain projects. And then you still have your foot on the ground. You still hire, and the roles you're hiring, the roles you're bringing in are, again, high value, high impact for the organization. So you'll probably find principals usually recruiting for the more senior positions. It's not always the case, but the more complicated roles, or they are able to put in place hiring strategies for more complicated roles to hire in an organization. I think that's kind of blueprint.
Just a small role.
It's not as big as it sounds, you know?
No, but the thing is, I think it's the impact this type of role can have given the opportunity to, right? I think that's the thing. So what would you say? So I've got tons of questions, right? So you have,
there we go.
and you have the head of TA or director of TA. I imagine it's probably head or director, depending on what people are calling it, right? Let's start with the difference in skill set needed in both roles. Where does it start to differ?
That's a nice question. Well, in the leadership piece, I believe it starts to differ because as an IC, as a principal, I don't have any authority, really. So everything I do is it's called influential leadership. And whereas my head of will have the authority given by a title and maybe by a job level, I'm the same level as the head, but they have the authority given by a title and given oftentimes by the fact that they have a number of reports, whereas I don't necessarily. My leadership is different than their leadership. Their leadership has the power of authority, I don't, and I have to influence. So one of the strongest skills you need to develop as a strong IC is in this direction. The ability to influence without authority on all sorts of levels. And this comes hand in hand with communication, emotional intelligence topics, you name it. I was not the best at this. I still am not. But there is a lot of work I need to put in to get better at this part of it. So emotional intelligence, influencing without authority, this is one divergence. The second one is the fact that we never lose touch with the ground. So a principal should be really always very well informed in what are the newest technologies, what are the newest ways of doing things, what is the most progressive way in which we can should recruit, bring innovation to the company. Whereas potentially a people leader is busy with the day-to-day workings of bringing people up, helping people through their jobs, some of the strategic initiatives as well at the company that they are working at. A recruiter in a principled manner has the foot on the ground and the hand on the pulse, right? The finger on the pulse. And this is again a skill which is split, right?
Yeah.
They diverge. I think these are the two main differences that I observe.
So it's more like it's also a complementary role, right? In terms of
100%.
and does the TA and in your mind, does the principal report to a TA, head of TA or director of TA, or both independently reporting to like a director of people or head of people, depending on the structure?
Oh, that would be brilliant. If it would be like this. I don't see an issue with a principal reporting into a head of talent acquisition. I think, again, they complement each other and they can, even if I had this experience and it was actually really good because my lead had the same level as I did, but we understood each other's strengths and also responsibilities very well. I still needed a person to lead me and help me through different things, but we were going places together, right?
Yeah.
So far, I am not familiar with organizations where, or am I lying? No, I have seen places where a principal is being led by the more senior, like a VP, for example, but this is a large organization. And even there, it's quite, so you might always end up with someone who is in a head of capacity. Again, I would really like to highlight this, the importance of them going hand in hand.
Yeah.
I don't see it as maybe it's an ego thing. I don't want to report to a head of TA. I know there are discussions about this, but I do know it can work.
Yeah. And it's more like you say, it's just having that shared vision, that shared alignment, the shared goal of you're both trying to do exactly the same thing. It's just doing a different part of the actual job that needs to be done, right?
100%. And this joint effort, as in we need to solve this problem, then I know I take my principal with me. So kind of like that. However, I remember an example. Actually, it's not from my area. It's from engineering. But I have a very, very close friend who is a senior principal. So really quite a high level role. And what happens in their case, and I would see this very much translating to talent acquisition as well, in larger, really large projects, company-wide projects, or projects of tremendous financial impact, they are being taken by their skip lead around. So this can also be a situation, right? There can be instances in talent acquisition where maybe the capabilities of a head of are limited in some regard, but the capabilities of a principal are better suited. So then take them out and bring them with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And do you have any? No, I know you probably have. What pushback do you get? Not do you get pushback, but what kind of pushback do you get when talking about the principal? What's the counter argument or people pushing back on this? What do they say? So I imagine you must have this.
Yes. Yeah. Oh wow, this triggered a little monster in me. Now, a couple of things I've heard. One, I have heard individuals in really senior positions, and this has saddened me really to the core, who didn't understand what this role can do for the organization. They didn't understand. For them, a principal recruiter was a glorified recruiter who is hiring 80% of their time, but they are hiring the more complicated positions. Not even executive, more complicated positions. And this I heard coming from a senior leader in talent acquisition, way above me, level-wise. And I thought, okay, that goes my career out the door. So one pushback from this is that, what value do you add? What's the point? Why do we need you to do projects? What's the point of that? Another pushback I heard of is, and this I actually understand it, is the size. Does it make sense to have a principal?
Yep.
In a size of X? Our organization is this big. Does it make sense or not? This is the second type of pushback I hear, which I think can make sense, right? To have this kind of pushback. The first one, I have a million contra arguments for that, but yeah, these are the main two I've heard so far.
Yeah, not all, but I do find there is a lot of ego in the talent space, and sometimes I think these pushbacks come from that, and I don't think it's coming from a place of good. It's coming from a place of I'm threatened. I talked about this before. Like a lot of people in TA they feel as though they don't have job security all the time, so they're constantly trying to prove themselves. Right? They're trying to give data for data's sake. They're trying to give insight for insight's sake. Trying to push tools for tools, just to show that they're doing something. So I don't bloody sack me, right? I'm doing my job, I'm delivering, I'm trying to do everything. And I really believe that there's some senior leaders are just positioning themselves in that position where it's like don't threaten my job. I'm not open to this because this potentially is a threat to me, right? And I think sometimes that's a big issue in the space. Controversial, but that's my take on it after being in here for like 17 years, and I can see it more and more. It used to be just inside recruitment agency side, but it's creeping in. I don't know if you have seen this before or not, but
I love this. I remember when we first talked that this is the part I liked about our conversations the most. Let's call it no filter, very transparent and honest observation, right? Yes, of course I observe it as well. And I think whoever says otherwise may not be entirely truthful. We had an event, I will just sidetrack a little bit. We had an event yesterday evening, and we had Kevin Wheeler and Baz invited. And one of the things they were talking about was the importance of having the right leadership in place. And this boils down to that, in my opinion. There will be, I need to like raise alarm bells. There will be people put in leadership roles because you have nothing else to do with them. And you need to grow them because they're actually doing quite a good job. Where do you put them? You put them in leadership. Do you train them? Maybe. Are they really good do they want to be there? Are they really good at what they do? I don't know. But they keep growing and they keep growing. And this is the thing that we talked about yesterday as well. They grow with a specific mindset. They grow for a long time on a track nobody disturbs, and they think that what they do, because they're still there and growing, they're doing it well.
Reinforcement of it, isn't it?
Exactly. It's constant, like it works. And then who they bring underneath, sadly, follows the same. It can follow the same track, and if there is nobody shift coming and blowing a bit of wind around, you risk having this constant path of the same leadership mentality. So yes, there will be some individuals who will have egos in play, who will be, I don't know if threatened, but maybe. I mean, the industry, it is how it is, right? Some people may today feel threatened, and it's a shame. It's a shame that there is little openness. However, there are also very progressive individuals, right, who are able to take a step back and reconsider and say, oh, yeah, but for that to happen, we need to give feedback. So we need to have the assertiveness. We were talking about it before. We need to have the confidence and the assertiveness and the capability of providing them with feedback and say, hey, you're not seeing things full. You don't see the full picture.
Yeah, it's true. And I had a Katrina Collier on.
Yeah.
She was the first one I did. And the thing I love about talking to her, she's so combative, right, with stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing that stuck with me was I've got a YouTube short of it. She's like, what people need to do is go, enough. If you're a hiring manager and you don't give me the time of day to give me my job description, I am not working the job and I'm going to shut it on the ATS. Until you do X, Y, and Z, back of the queue, goodbye. I've paraphrased completely what she said, but I'll send it to you after. But it's exactly this. You have to have that like self-confidence to be able to do that. But I don't know if that space is there for TAs to be able to be like that as well. I think you have to be quite confident in yourself. You have to know yourself. You have to feel brave enough to be able to have those conversations and even have the culture that allows you to have these kind of conversations.
Yes.
Because in France, it is crazy how hierarchical everything is. Like, I honestly, like, I'm coming from the UK and I thought we were quite like that, but oh my God, it's like, right, here's your lane, stay in here, you're not allowed to go out of it. No, this person is a senior VP of a company that's got like 5 people, but you can't talk to them. What do you mean you can't talk to them? Like, you hear so many stories. I'm exaggerating, right? But it is this, and I just don't think that the TAs have that space to be able to do it. I don't know what you think. There are companies out there, obviously, that I'm really picking on the ones that aren't doing good enough, right?
And there always will be a mix of everything. I don't know the recipe. I don't have the recipe. But there is one thing that I do. I learned, luckily, I was really lucky to work in these big corporates, really political at times. At times, I really disliked it because it was so political. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing here. But I learned a ton. And I look around me, around some of the people who are in the same industry as I am. And I think we can influence things. We can influence things if we know how to showcase the value of the things that we do. Do we really know how to show an organization the value that we bring? Do we really know how to show the money we can save? Do we know how to show a real return on investment? Do we know how to build a business case? Do we? And then if we don't, then we should. And then, in my opinion, I think that's probably at some point the best we can do. You can build your case solidly and try to influence with data. That's one big piece of it. And the second piece of it is persistence. Somebody asked, I don't know, there was a question on LinkedIn on one of these polls at some point. I think it was from Hang Lee. Like, kind of, what kind of role is the best role to have before coming to recruitment? And I voted like a crazy person on sales, because we come with resilience, right? We come with thick skin in a way. So having the knowing your craft, how to show the value of your work, and then being persistent in your attempts to influence. I think these are things that we can play with to try to change minds. Will we always succeed? Hell no. Am I allowed to swear?
Of course you're allowed to swear.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. No, we won't always succeed. There will be people in very senior capacities which will just have different agendas, or it's the time is not right. That's also a possibility. The time is not right.
Yeah,
Come
but
back in a
that's
year.
okay. But that's also okay.
Exactly.
That's okay. But it's just because it's fresh in my mind, I was talking to Pierre Arnold from Back Market in another podcast, and what he was saying, which I thought was a really valid point, it's that it's not always just about the value you create. It's also making sure that you don't lose the company money, right? Because
Yes.
he said something. It was like, imagine I don't know, you start negotiating salaries, right? You have a range in which you can negotiate, right? And when you are doing that negotiation, you manage to close the person to join, right? I'm using sales language, right? But we close the candidate, then they're going to say, yes, I'm going to start the job. But every single person you're doing, you're giving them like an extra 3K uplift. Like you're giving them more at the top of the funnel, right? And he was like, actually going to put more pressure on you as an individual in your job, because typically TAs, as we've seen over the last 2 years, are the ones that get let go first. If you're giving everybody a £3,000 a year increase in their salary, and then you've just hired 10 of them, that's an extra 30K a year that's coming out, which puts more pressure on sales to sell more, which puts more pressure on marketing to generate more. Do you know what I mean? So it's understanding how the finances work and what your decisions make, and it's not going to put more pressure on you, you know?
Oh
Not,
yeah.
by the way, this is not me advocating for getting the candidate as low as possible, right? Like, this is not what
No,
I'm
no.
saying. You see my
Even
point
if you
anyway.
would, I wouldn't listen to you. No, but I like that. I like that a lot. It's definitely very smart to put it in perspective like that. It's not only where we make the money, but where we save the money.
Yeah.
And true, if you don't do it for the sake of the company, do it for your own sake, kind of stuff. Funny enough, the meeting I just came out of before our conversation now, one of the things we were talking about, we were building an archetype for a senior individual in our technology department. So we took the career frameworks of Termondo, and then we started building it up. And one of the pieces that we really spent quite a bit of time on was this part in a senior individual. We want to see their understanding of the business beyond the product. Yeah. Understanding the financial impact of their decisions, of their actions,
Yeah.
of their impulses, of whatever they do at work. And then keeping that in mind and taking that information into account when proceeding with their job in a way or another. So for a talent acquisition professional, 100%. It's about, I hear conversations sometimes about, we don't get enough applications. I just had 2 more white hairs growing here in the back from just saying it, really. And then I think to myself, so what do you do? Let's advertise more. Yes, if you haven't succeeded so far doing it this way, if you push harder the same way, it's definitely gonna get you results. And then I'm like, we can be imaginative. We can come up with ideas that we can do things, but try to search for things. I think it is our utmost responsibility to be mindful of the costs, because we are already perceived, as you said, right, as a cost for the company.
Yeah.
And in whatever we do, think first, can I do this for free or for less money? And if so, how? And then you take that and you say, hey, I've done this for free or less money. Anybody else interested? I can teach you all how to do it for free or for less money. And then become this multiplier at the same time as being the mindful money saver for your organization, and then go and speak about it.
Yeah. I think that's right. And I think it's just, and again, but this is another thing. So my mission at the moment and my problem statement is, how might we change the perception of TAs and
Mm.
also help them create more strategic value, right? Like, how might we do this? And it's stuff like that that you're talking about that does raise the bar, because you are informed, because you know how the rest of the business is going. You're not just buying every tool possible, and then suddenly you've got this like huge cost on tools, or you're not closing properly, or you're not analyzing things properly, or creating good business cases and stuff like that. Have you done anything about storytelling when it comes to creating business cases in the past, or not so much?
Are you asking if I have used storytelling in the way I presented business cases?
Yeah.
I will use the same Denglish word I used before, yang,
Yeah.
because the business cases I have built before, the way we presented them was primarily asynchronously. Then for us to be able to do it like live, there was maybe little space
Yeah.
to try to build this in. This is the one part of the answer. The second part of the answer, if storytelling is something that I am personally quite keen on and educating myself on, so that I can try and implement it even in little portions in the different, let's say, situations where I can implement it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I've done enough.
No, the reason I just wondered, I've been playing around with. I'm an absolute geek, so I've been playing around with all the products and all the different AI tools and stuff. I created a GPT to create a how could recruiters create business cases?
Nice. I
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah, no, but I've finished been tinkering it. I need to get some people to test it out, so maybe I'll send it to you to play with. Give us some
Please
feedback.
do.
It's good. But yeah, it's quite cool because it basically gives you you tell them what it is you're trying to do. What's the problem you're trying to solve? You define that problem statement, and then from that, you answer some questions, and it helps you create the template of the business case for what you can then go
Nice.
and put into a presentation or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I quite like anything to make people's life easier, right? Like AI has to be there to help you where you might not have that real knowledge on knowing how to put something together or to do something. It can level you up, right? Like don't just copy and paste everything from it.
Yeah.
I think that's the right.
You know what, John? You touched upon something I really want to connect to. Do something that makes people's life easier. I think this is one of the main, I will call it responsibility of a principal. So when people look at, I don't know what to do with my career, and I don't really like to manage people, or maybe I do, but I don't know. If you think of becoming a principal, making people's lives easier in your vicinity is one of our main responsibilities. You mentioned this GPT that you built, and things like this. These are things that come under our remit in a way. We observe, again, this bird's eye view, right? Things, and then we say, hey, you know what? I have a problem. I observe this thing. Maybe somebody else has the same problem. Go and ask, find out. You probably will find out that other people have the same problem. And then when you come up with your hypothesis about how you can potentially solve the problem, make sure you don't solve it for your little garden, but the way you think about the problems, the solution to your problem, you think at scale. I think this is one of the most important things I have ever learned, and it's also from my previous organizations, but also from my friends in engineering. Like this, how does this impact the whole system, and how does that system impact the bigger system?
Exactly.
And
This.
yeah, I think Thomas, a friend of mine, mentioned systems thinking to me once.
Yeah.
We didn't get to talk about it, but anyway, you know where I'm headed with this.
Yeah, I've geeked out on that. I got introduced to systems thinking a few years ago, and but again, it's how many people know and understand what systems thinking really actually is. But in the context of recruitment, you don't need to go into the
Exactly.
it needs to go to a certain level of it, but you do need to understand what it is, because most people go, oh yeah, like here's the carrot. Oh, I've grabbed the carrot. That's great. And you don't realize it's connected to a string that's then a bunch of cow manure over the other side of the room, right? This is exactly it.
Yeah.
So you need to understand what your actions have on others, right?
100%. What's the effect downstream? This is something that my previous lead used to tell me, that my actions will have an impact downstream that I really need to think about. And gosh, how many times I failed. I didn't think about, right? I felt like that's my autobahn. That's what I need to go.
Yeah,
I saw it and I went like a bullet, and the whole hell broke loose behind me, but I was oblivious to it.
exactly. But these are I've done exactly the same. Like I've got a humongous bias for action, and I
Yeah,
can be impatient sometimes. I'm like, come on, let's just go, boom. And that's fantastic in the right context, but in the wrong context, that can cause problems, right? So you just
yeah,
have to just take a step back. And fortunately, I'm
yeah.
a little bit older and uglier and wiser now, so I know when not to do these
You
things.
know what? If you see my strength, my Gallup strength, it's completely off railing your podcast. Sorry, my Gallup strengths are the top. I have like the five, right? But three of them are about action, about problem solving, about command, and it's just like effectiveness 200% on steroids. And the other one of them is influence, and the other one is communication. I'm just like, what can you do with me? You know, I know you can put me somewhere where there's fire, and let me put it down, right, and build you a new tree instead, or whatever it may be. But it's this, you called it bias to action because you're so eloquent in English where I'm not, but that's perfectly said. Bias to action, and a senior individual needs to recognize the fault in themselves when we are like that. We also need to embrace the beauty of this skill.
Yeah, and also, I think embracing the beauty of the skill is a very good way of putting it. And maybe even the next level of that is knowing how do you build or get around people that complement that skill you have, right? How
Yeah,
do you work with those people that are maybe slower and want to do things more methodically and go through things a little bit slower? But that's where you need that push and pull in different moments. And it's exactly what you were saying with the principal and the head of TA, and how those roles complement each other, right? Like, and I think that's important when you're maybe looking for a principal recruiter role. Like, what is the head of TA like, right? Because if they're
yeah,
exactly like you could both get yourself in lots of trouble very quickly, right?
100%. And there is, you know what, it really reminded me of something really quite important. When you are a very driven bias to action IC or principal, another level of support that you get from your head of is, you have projects to do, right? You most likely, your processes to implement, to develop, what's or not. And you may struggle because of your lack of authority, like authoritarian leadership, to influence individuals who are maybe slower, who are maybe stuck in their ways, who are maybe less enthusiastic about the role, about the job. You may be having difficulties influencing them. And that's when this partnership really helps, that the lead approaches them in a different manner. They have a different kind of conversation with these individuals. They have a different type of, let's say, career development kind of conversation with the individuals. And you provide them with some information, with some support, with some tools, mechanisms, and they go and they help you
Yeah.
out. So that's I've seen this as well. Again, in my previous team, it was brilliant because it
No,
really worked.
I 100%, I agree with you on that. And when you were talking about the upstream and downstream stuff, there's a really good book by Dan and Chip Heath. I love them, their books. But it's called Upstream. I'm going to double check. I'm pretty sure it's called Upstream. And it's really, really good. It's all about exactly what you were talking about. It's making sure you can even think about how can you prevent problems from happening, right? Rather than solving problems that are already existing, like, God, you've got all these problems, you need to try and like fix it now. It's better
Mm-hmm.
to try and prevent those problems from happening in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's it called? It's called Upstream. Sorry, and it's called Upstream: How to Solve Problems Before They Happen, and it's really, really good.
Nice. I'll check it on Amazon. I haven't seen it,
This
but
is a super easy one to read. It's a
yeah,
nice, easy book. It's not too heavy, and it gives you really good stories and examples of how it works. I love those type of books, and like these type of storytelling. It's much better. Conscious of time and stuff.
I'm
Um,
not. I don't have a
oh no, you're okay.
watch.
Okay, good. Oh, okay, good. All right, good, good, good.
I can't see anywhere. Only if I look at my. Wait,
You're
now I
watching.
am.
Okay. I had a question for you. RPO's impact on the market. Can we go there? And I'm coming from a position that I had one. We had 6 businesses we were working with, and it was a super good business model, right, in terms of making money and the effect it can have. What I don't like about this is how every single time we save them X amount of money on recruitment agency fees. And my point is, one, you're not hiring every single person for a recruitment agency, number one, right? So that model doesn't necessarily work. That argument doesn't work. Second of all, there is a place for recruitment agencies in the market. Like if you have a domain specialist, C-level suite recruiter, why would you go and actively headhunt that alone without going to another agency? Like if it was a really pivotal role and all they're doing is talking to these people all day, every single day, why would you not do that? So my point about the RPO stuff is, do you think they are here to stay? And the second point is, do you think they're actually helpful, or is it more of a outsourcing something that shouldn't really be outsourced?
You know, I had the chance to work with RPOs a number of times so far, and I have really one time a really poor example, a really poor experience, and another time a really good experience. Now, I think they are here to stay. I don't know if RPOs, or if we call them embedded, or if we call them embedded boutiques. Maybe that's where I would go. So I would go from the big haze. Maybe that works for a Coca-Cola. I don't know. You are a Coca-Cola, you are a Nestle. Yeah, get your haze, your Adecco, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe that works for you. If we look at more streamlined businesses, more niche, than looking at boutique embedded talent acquisition, I think it does work. I am actually, in some regard, I actually advocate for it. And the reason why is because I fear that we end up hiring and firing. So I find myself even advocating for my own company. Right now, we are looking to hire for someone. And my suggestion is, please bring an embedded partner in, because you may overestimate your growth, because we are in the environment that we are in still in 2024. So it's a risk. So I think they are here to stay. I believe that they need to really brush off on some of the things they do. I think there is a space for everyone. I think there is a space for agency. I think there is a space for RPO, and I think there is space for talent acquisition, internal talent acquisition teams. I don't know why we can't
Coexist.
Exactly, right? Live together. And yes, there will always be the spikes, the poor ones and the really, really good ones. But I think I answered one of your questions. I don't know the other. I forgot the other one. Did I answer all your questions?
The first one was and also it was around. Do you think in some ways sometimes it is like outsourcing your culture? And what I mean by that is it's a very integral role, right? I think TAs, you're the front line of your people,
Yes.
right? And as having managed people in that space, TAs, the biggest concern they always had, or feeling they had, was they're kind of half in the company, half not in the company, and they're half in the RPO business or the embedded business and they're not really knowing their place. So they kind of can do it with some passion, but they don't get all the information they need, So it depends on the business, of course, as you said. There's some that you can get everything and some that you can't. But there's, I just wonder what effect that overall has on the culture of the business, when they're like, oh yeah, no, when you're trying to explain to them you don't actually work for the company, but you're appearing as if you do work for the company,
Yes, I do. I think these two examples I mentioned, one really bad, one really good, really come in helpful here, because yes, they can definitely not only dilute your culture, but really do a number on your employer brand as well, really. So that's where that's what I was mentioning. They need to brush off their act properly. On the other end, I had a really, really good experience. I joined an organization at some point and they had embedded partners. I did not know that they are embedded. They were so much like us. They were living, breathing the mission, the vision, the values. They were sometimes, some of them, closer to us as a team than some of the actual internals. So when I joined for the first couple of weeks, I had no idea they are embedded, no clue.
Mm.
So so I had really good experiences with them as well. But then that is also the responsibility of their own organization to make sure that they keep them in a role which provides for them. And there are some companies who are doing a really good job at this, right? So it doesn't have to be a full dilution of the culture. It doesn't have to be a trashing of your employer brand, provided that you choose wisely and that the RPOs themselves or the embedded partners are really mindful of the way they approach doing business.
It's just a new challenge the new challenge is going to be like, how do you qualify the fact that they are the right ones
like
for
we
you?
didn't have enough, right? We don't have enough challenges.
Exactly, there was one other thing I was going to ask you, and it's just evaded my mind. That was it. So we were talking about the principal recruiter as it's like an alternative path for a TA, right?
Yeah.
And I was speaking to someone the other day who said, in the TA space, it's a pretty relatively new profession, really, relatively speaking, right?
Yes.
And it appears there's more and more younger people being taken into these like really big roles very quickly because it's cheaper. And there's a lot of people who have been in the industry for quite a while who are maybe becoming a little bit tired of the industry because of the lack of impact and all the things we've spoken about. But if the average age of retirement is slowly but surely increasing, what are all these TAs going to do, right? If we don't change the perception and and level up the profession, what are we going to do?
Well, we will have very, very many managers. I tell you that. That's what we will do. You know, a side joke, in Romania, where I'm from, we joke, but it's not a joke, it's the truth. The supervisor has a supervisor who has a manager who supervises a lead of a manager, who has a head of. It's insane sometimes, not always, right? So we might end up like that. It's sad to think that in another 10 years from now, I remember I was reading reports from Deloitte from 10 years back talking about the importance of strategic talent acquisition 10 years ago, talking about the same things we are still talking about today. And I wonder, where have we gone sideways? So if in 10 years from now, we will be talking about the same topic of what are we going to do with all these people, it's going to be really a pity, because we do have the opportunity to embrace diversity of career paths. This is the one thing that I really, really try to advocate for. First of all, is this diversity piece, right? IC to manager, allow for the development of the principal role to even exist. And then there are so many other options that we can build across in talent acquisition. I fear that the juniors coming in, I really hope it doesn't happen, but they will end up running this treadmill of recruitment, 360 recruitment, and that's it. If we don't start already expanding, opening up,
creating more specialist space, like more special. You think about how marketing works. If you have a head of marketing, they're not an expert in every level of marketing, right? They normally have 2 or 3 channels they're very good at. They might be good at SEO, good at paid, good at something else, right?
Yeah.
Another one might be good at brand, good at something else, So it's just taking the general of what is recruitment, right? Hiring, feet on the ground, know exactly how it works, and then having your specialist area, whether it's employer branding. I think that's where it needs to go.
Yeah, it should definitely expand like that. I don't want, however, to take away the importance of a generalist role, because a generalist, in my opinion, a principal is quite a generalist. It's not necessarily an SME, because you can take them from tech, put them in commercial, put them in whatever, the skill set translates easily.
But for me, the principal fits that role of the generalist, right? Like somebody who is good everywhere, can pick up things, good people person, knows how to move around and collaborate and that type of stuff. And I think that's what I like about your vision of the principal.
Yes, that's what I hope for it to be. I did see recently someone who was promoted or started a new job as a principal, and I looked at their background and I thought, yeah, no.
But this happens. It's like I saw
Yes,
something, sometimes like global head of TA
yes, yes,
function, like, yeah, no,
yes. How
it's 50
many? I have
years.
5 reports. Good.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
No.
it is, but so please don't inflate the titles. I don't know if we can put a banner on your podcast here. My parting words, please stop inflating titles.
Okay, that's going to be the title. Don't inflate your title.
Yes.
No, but it's true. I totally agree. In summary, right? Let's try and wrap it up with something that people can take away, like actual feeling it, right? Because sometimes
Yeah.
you know how many times do we talk about stuff? We've mentioned systems thinking and stuff like that, and we could be perceived to be in the clouds a little bit, right? So let's read that, and I don't think that, because I think it's important. That's the whole point of the holistic recruit, is to get in the clouds, to get that view, right? What is it that if somebody wants to be a principal recruiter, or there's stuff that's resonating with them, what steps can they start taking today to become one?
I'm thinking. 1, ask questions. Be curious about what's happening around you. You know what's funny? Side note, I think I've been asked this question before, and I think I provide a slightly different answer now, but I learn as I grow. Ask questions. So ask around you what's going on. Understand what's happening around you beyond your desk and beyond your immediate remit of your job. What problems are others faced with? Understand. Ask questions. Then be proactive. Be proactive in after your observation happens of what can be solved, fixed, improved, optimized. Be proactive in and speak with people, and don't shy away from coming up with ideas of how to solve some problems. Ownership, ownership, and ownership. So put your hand up and ask for responsibility. Yes, you will be overworked at times. I'm sorry. Yes, you will have to hire and lead projects and implement processes and help others. And yes, it's true. But you need to start somewhere. Put your hand up, learn prioritization, and don't be afraid to go and ask for more responsibility. And then start asking for support in delivering on those responsibilities. So that's where I would kind of start. And then this way your scope expands, right? And I can keep going about what you need to learn and so on and so forth.
Exactly. And also follow you on LinkedIn so they can actually see what you're talking about. So they can actually
They
see
can do that as well. Yes, I would appreciate that.
Well, that was absolutely lovely to have you on, Andrea. I'm glad we managed to get around to doing it.
Yes, me
As
too.
always, I feel like we could have just kept going and going and going and going, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep them to a certain amount of time.
I now feel sorry we haven't recorded our previous conversations. You know what? Because this would make for like an ongoing chat about.
Maybe we should do it. Let's do it. Let's do something. Because I feel like every time we have a chat, we're discovering new things. It's a very, as you said, it's very open and transparent. We're not like trying to hide behind it and just self-promote. It's like, these are the problems. What can we do to fix them? It's not, there's a bit of a idea. Some actual actions off the back of it, how we can get better. I think that's the key. But yeah.
Thank you for having me. Really, really happy we managed to do this. And I really hope that we provide value to the people. I'm pretty sure we will. Yeah. So let's see what comes next.
Exactly. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye-bye.
Thanks.